And as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? Without skipping a beat, Noah said, I love my job.
I think courage is external, right? The reason someone has courage to jump out of an airplane is because there's a parachute on their back. It's the external thing.
Why is trust a leadership skill that should be taught?
What kind of person makes it into the SEALs? And he said, I can't tell you the kind of person that makes it in, but I can tell you the kind of person that doesn't make it in. I think courage is external, right? The reason someone has courage to jump out of an airplane is because there's a parachute on their back. It's the external thing. A world-famous trapeze artist would never try a brand new death-defying act for the first time without a net. It's the net that gives them the courage. The Navy SEALs are considered one of the highest performing organizations on the planet. And a former SEAL was asked, what kind of person makes it into the SEALs? And he said, I can't tell you the kind of person that makes it in, but I can tell you the kind of person that doesn't make it in. He said the star college athletes who have never really been tested to the core of their being, none of them make it in. He said the preening leaders who like to delegate everything, none of them make it in. He says the guys who show up with hulking muscles covered in tattoos because they want to show you how tough they are, none of them make it in. He said some of the guys who make it in are skinny and scrawny. He said some of the guys who make it in, you see them shivering out of fear. He said, but every single one of the guys who makes it in, when they're emotionally exhausted, when they're physically exhausted, when they have absolutely nothing left to give, somehow, some way, they're able to dig down deep inside themselves to find the energy to help the guy next to them. In other words, the reason these organizations and these people have the courage to do remarkable things is not because of their internal strength. It's because they have the absolute confidence that there is someone to the left of them and someone to the right of them that cares about them. And they all know that. And it's the quality of the relationships that we maintain, professionally and personally, that give us the courage to do difficult things. Isaac Stern, the famous violinist, said, music is what happens between the notes. Well, something like trust happens between the meetings. Few people think about the importance of building trust when they go to work, or what do I need to do today to build trust with somebody? It doesn't really go through people's minds. But we have chit-chat as we walk into the meeting. We have chit-chat when we walk out of the meeting. And we see somebody in the hall and they're like, oh, meant to tell you something. Or you knock on someone's door and be like, got a minute? And all those little innocuous interactions over the course of time, like any relationship, build trust. It's about setting up the computer, setting up Zoom and having a work session with somebody. We're not working on the same thing, but I want to work with somebody, a work buddy, or having a lunch with somebody over Zoom, or a Monday morning huddle where we talk about what's on our heart and minds, but we do not talk business on purpose, or Friday cocktails that are just voluntary. But the most important one is to just pick up the phone and call people and say, how are you? That level of empathy. Just check in on someone. And I think we neglect it because we get mired in the day-to-day. But, if you're organized or disorganized, literally keep a list of your team on a little card next to your computer and just, go through it and have I called this person in a while and talked to them. I'm just going to call and check in. It doesn't matter if something's wrong or not wrong. Just check in on them. Don't wait for something to break. And let people know that that there's connection. There's a way to reach out and say, I need help. Because and the most important thing is for leaders to be honest and open about their need to ask for help. And that'll work.
I've worked with the Navy SEALs. And I asked them, how do you pick the guys that go on SEAL Team 6? Right? Because they're the best. And they drew a graph for me. And on one side, they wrote the word performance, and on the other side, they wrote the word trust. The way they define the terms is performance on the battlefield and performance off the battlefield. So this is your skills. This is, did you make your quarterly earnings, however you want to translate it, right? Performance, traditional. This is, how are you off the battlefield? What kind of person are you? The way they put it is, I may trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? They're SEALs. This is what they told me. Nobody wants this person, the low performer of low trust, of course. Of course, everybody wants this person, the high performer of high trust. Of course. What they learned is that this person, the high performer of low trust, is a toxic leader and a toxic team member. And they would rather have a medium performer of high trust, sometimes even a low performer of high trust, it's a relative scale, over this person. This is the highest performing organization on the planet, and this person is more important than this person. And the problem in business is we have lopsided metrics. We have 1,000,001 metrics to measure someone's performance, and negligible to no metrics to measure someone's trustworthiness. And so what we end up doing is promoting or bonusing toxicity in our businesses, which is bad for the long game because it eventually destroys the whole organization. The irony is, it's unbelievably easy to find these people. Go to any team and say, who's the asshole? And they will all point to the same person. Equally, if you go to any team and say, who do you trust more than anybody else? Who's always got your back? And when the chips are down, they will be there with you. They will also all point to the same person. It's the best gifted natural leader who's creating an environment for everybody else to succeed, and they may not be your most individual highest performer. But that person, you better keep them on your team.
Why is trust a leadership skill that should be taught?
That's a hard question. You can't teach people to trust. This is, I think, one of the reasons these subjects are dismissed as fluffy or unnecessary, is because they are inherently feelings. Trust is a feeling. That's what it is. Feelings. But that's what it is. Trust is a feeling, as is loyalty. These are feelings that we have towards people or organizations. And so, like all feelings, it's positive feelings. They have to be earned, and they evolve, and they take a series of actions to prove that you are worthy of trust. And so, no matter how excited you are to start a new job, no matter how excited they are to have you, you don't feel a part of the company immediately. It just doesn't happen. You don't know the language, you don't know the customs, you don't know the traditions. You don't fit in quite yet. They don't really know who you are. And over the course of time, little by little, you'll do little things, you'll put yourself out for others. Little by little, they'll give you a little more and a little more. And over the course of 6, 7, 8, 9 months, you'll actually start to feel like, I belong here, I feel like it, If you go years without feeling like you belong, you probably don't. Yeah, no, trust is not something that can be dictated. Trust me, or trust each other. Cooperate. Why don't you guys, if you guys cooperate, we'll have some more. It's not how it works. It's environmental.
Yeah.
It's always environmental.
And for organizations that lack that environmental trust, how do you help organizations turn that around?
It comes from the commitment to leadership. Leaders determine the environment. Leaders determine how big and how porous the circle of safety is. You take a look at a company like Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs back in the 70s and 80s, they were the Boy Scouts of Wall Street. That's what they were referred to as. They believed in something called long-term greed, which is it's okay to make money, but they had this long perspective. And they were renowned for doing the right thing and sometimes taking short-term losses because it was the right thing to do. That was their culture, And through a series of poor management decisions and then going public, exaggerated some of those things. They no longer put as much weight on evaluating someone's cultural fit when making a hire. Now you had this sort of trader mentality started to, take hold inside the culture. And what you started to see was the disintegration of a high values culture, where it was no longer about protecting the reputation, protecting each other. It was now about protecting myself and advancing myself. And we've seen what's happened. They played a role in what we've seen happen to the economy. Because without a circle of safety, what happens is we inherently concern ourselves with our own survival. Biologically, we become cynical, we become selfish, and we become paranoid. That's what happens when we don't feel trust. When you don't trust somebody who that you live with and you don't trust somebody in a relationship, you become paranoid that everything they're doing is trying to hurt you. You know, we become cynical of everything they say. We become self-interested. We start doing things to protect ourselves and building walls. Well, it's the exact same thing inside organizations. When we do not feel safe, we will do things to protect ourselves, which will ultimately damage and hurt the culture and the company.
We all know that trust is important, but what is it really? So I'll give you an example. It's sort of my favorite examples of what a trusting team looks like. So a bunch of years ago, I was in Vegas for a business trip, and they were very nice to put me up down the street at the Four Seasons. It's a beautiful hotel. The Four Seasons over here happens to have a coffee bar in the lobby. So one afternoon, I went for a cup of coffee, and the barista working that day, named Noah, he was charming and funny and engaging, and I stood there for far too long talking to Noah. And as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? Without skipping a beat, Noah said, I love my job. Now, in my line of work, that's significant. Like is rational, right? I like the people, I like the work, I get paid well, I like my job. Love is emotional, higher order connection. Do you love your wife? I like her a lot, right? It's different. And Noah said, I love my job. So for me, I was like, oh, that's a higher order connection because the kid's emotionally connected to his job. So immediately I followed up and said, can you tell me specifically what the Four Seasons is doing that you even say to me, I love my job? And again, he didn't skip a beat. He said, yeah, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, ask me if there's anything that I need to do my job better. Not just my manager, any manager. And then he said, I also work at another hotel. He says, and there the managers catch us when we're doing things wrong. He says, there the managers put pressure on us simply to make our numbers perform. There I like to keep my head below the radar and just get through the day and collect my paycheck. Only at the Four Seasons, he said, do I feel, there's that word again, do I feel I can be myself? What I find so profound about that story is this is the exact same human being in two different companies, in two different leadership environments. And our experience of him will be profoundly different, not because of the person, but because of the place he works. It's not the person very often. And so, we talk about, you can't get good people these days. It's like the common factor in all my failed relationships is, right? It's like, if there's no good people ever that you can hire, I'm thinking, there's one common factor in all those people who are leaving you. And Noah's experiences, we have this twisted thoughts about how we get the most out of our people. Like, how am I going to get the most out of my people? Are not a towel that you bring them out, how much you can get out of them. The question is, what kind of environment can I create in which my people can work at their natural best? So one of the things that I have deep admiration for the military, and the admiration I have for the military is the exact same love and admiration I have for artists, is because they both undertook their paths knowing that they weren't going to get rich, and felt like it was a calling, and were willing to sacrifice to advance this thing, whatever it is, and be a part of something. So to me, it's the same love. And the thing that I noticed immediately when I started hanging out with folks in uniform is you and I have colleagues and coworkers. They have brothers and sisters. They literally refer to the people they work with as brothers and sisters. And the relationship is one of brother and sister, which is they may fight, but you try and attack my brother or sister, you gotta go through me. They love each other. Love is the word they will use. The Marine Corps calls them the intangibles, right? That what makes the Marine Corps strong are the intangibles. What they mean is empathy, love, devotion, these mushy words. And you're asking me a question like, how do we do it in weeks and months? These are human beings we're talking about, right? So that's like asking me, can I give you advice so that you can fall in love in a matter of weeks, instead of having to do this whole like getting to know them, being vulnerable. I got no app for that. It's a slow, ploddy process. sometimes you get lucky and you have a meeting of the minds and you have shared values and it goes a little quicker. But even though we get really excited and we jump in the relationship, 3 months later we're like, what was I thinking? Right? There is no way to speed up. It takes more than a week, but if you've been doing something for 7 years and you don't love it, maybe it's wrong, right? I just don't know where it happens. So what I do know is that the way you build trust inside an organization is the exact same way you fall in love, right? Which is you devote yourself to the care of another human being, sometimes at the sacrifice of your own interests. It means when the person you love comes home from work and they said, I had a terrible day, and you had an amazing day, you don't say a word about your amazing day at all. And you sit there and listen with love and empathy to their horrible day, as opposed to waiting for your turn to speak. You know, it means that you wake up in the morning and you say good morning to them before you check your phone. It's little things. It means you learn to listen and make them, and listening is really easy. It means you make the other person feel heard. So if you can go learn all of those things on how to make a friend and how to fall in love, now go do all of those things at work. That when somebody walks into your office and goes, oh, fuck my day. You go, what's happening? And you listen so they feel heard. Don't give them advice. Don't fix anything. Just listen, right? When they tell you how awful it is, say, that sucks, tell me more, right? It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And I promise you will build those relationships where you will fall in love with the people you work with. And you will call them brothers and you will call them sisters, and they will say the same of you. So that's how you do that. And by the way, the military doesn't do it in 13 weeks. What they do is they create a foundation for it in 13 weeks. But it takes time for those relationships to truly form.